Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Monday, and welcome to episode 579. Wow, 579 episodes of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we're back. We took last week off. I wasn't feeling too good last week. My back has been causing me some issues. I was recently diagnosed with having some bulging discs in my lower back. I've had lower back pain for most of my life, and so I finally decided to get it checked out. It turns out probably something to do with these bulging discs, some degeneration as well. So they have just been a lot more painful more recently. Scheduled to finally get a shot for the pain in my lower back that's supposed to last for several months. I've heard wonders about how it's helped out others who have a similar issue. So I'm very much looking forward to that so that I can actually start to do things to hopefully mitigate any future degeneration and future pain. So again, thank y'all very much for understanding why we had to cancel the show last week. Appreciate y'all very much. But we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight because we have Tron, the latest Disney film, flopping. And now that the actuals from the weekend have come out, the story is actually even worse for the latest Disney movie. Not only that, but of course, we also have the news that came out last week that, hey, turns out Superman wasn't the big hit that all of the gun nuts have been trying and just literally forcing down everyone else's throats. This just lie that the film was somehow a massive hit, a massive success, exactly where they needed to be for the start of this new DCU, a huge success. A lot of them have continued to say that Peacemaker is continuing that success. The problem is that the data doesn't actually back it up. The facts of the case just don't back that up. No one's watching Peacemaker, which is just a garbage show. No one is seeing to the degree and to the level that these gun nuts have been seeing or are excited about Superman or really even the future of the DCU. The numbers don't lie. The numbers are actually quite clear. Even using the numbers that they have given us, even using the projected budget and the projected marketing that they are claiming are real. And you all know that I don't buy those numbers for a second. If you're going to put on a tax form an estimate for what you're going to spend, and then, turns out we spent well over $100 million less than that, spare me. Spare me. That's ludicrous. That's Fugazi, right? Fairy dust. Just nonsense. So we'll talk about that because, unfortunately, I was not able to be on the Salty Saturday stream yesterday, or 2 days ago, I should say, because today actually was Little Thor's birthday. He just turned 5 today, which is just crazy. Saying that it's been I've been doing YouTube for that long, right? For that length of time and more. Crazy that he is, starting up kindergarten next year because of the way his birthday lands. Just madness. And so we had a party for him on Saturday so that way he could spend that time with his friends. It was at an inside playground, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was great. But it also meant that it went on a little bit longer. By the time we got back, got everyone down for their naps and everything else, just was not able to jump onto the Salty stream. And apparently, I was able to pull it up for a moment just to listen in. I know that Tom took over of Midnight's Edge After Dark, took over the show this week because of Matthew traveling. And what do I listen in on? But, they're talking about all of the news reporting on Superman, and they continue to simp for the movie. I do not understand it. And I actually started to listen to the first part, at least, like the first 30, 45 minutes of Little Platoon's 4-hour breakdown of why Superman is objectively a bad movie. And even within the first 10 minutes, there's just already so many excellent points that are raised. And it just once again reiterates the point that the movie's just not good. You can enjoy the film all you want, right? This is a point that even Little Platoon brings up, and I've mentioned this before, right? There's the objective understanding of the movie, view of the film, and then there's the subjective experience. And you can have as positive of a subjective experience as you want to have. But you cannot change objective reality. because of your feelings, because of what it made you personally feel. So for anyone who enjoyed the film, again, I don't want to take that joy away. But when you then cross that over to try to say that, oh, it's actually a really good movie, when it's not, I take issue with that. And then even more so because my main focus in this space is box office, you then try to claim that, oh, the box office is actually really, really good for this movie when objectively it is not. Guess what? I'm going to take issue with that as well, especially because a lot of the same people that are just going gaga over this movie and are just still defending it, still trying to just, come up with fake numbers out of thin air are the same ones who would be calling out Disney, who would be calling out maybe even Zack Snyder, but would be calling out almost anybody else for the same kind of movie and saying this film was not a success. But because it is their baby, because for some reason they just have this emotional attachment that they cannot let go of, it's clouding their judgment. It really honestly is. Because if even the trades are starting to recognize and starting to wake up to the fact that, yeah, guess what? This movie was not the huge success that people claimed it to be. Not to mention the plethora, uncountable number of lies that James Gunn has said about almost anything. Basically, anytime he speaks, it is nothing but lies. How they still continue to believe him, have faith in him, and support him, again, is beyond me. Again, if you subjectively enjoyed a movie, I cannot take that away from you. You enjoy it all you want, but you can't just, using that alone, determine that the film is objectively good when it is not, or that the film was a huge box office success, which it was not. Again, if it was, why did they put it onto VOD as quickly as they did? After saying they wouldn't, why did it go on to streaming for free, for a streaming service at least, when they had no reason to? And again, what was the reason they gave? Peacemaker. And guess what? Peacemaker's numbers sucked. It was never charting. Basically, no one was watching it except for the gun nuts. And it, again, continues just to boggle the mind as to how and why these people continue to simp as much as they are for this thing. Because that's what, at this point, it is simping. I think that we're going to see a lot of interesting nominations for Shill of the Year for next year's Raven Awards. I'll just put it that way. But anyway, let's go ahead and say hello to our people who are in the chat tonight. We got Kimberly G, Killian Shadowcat, who was here early at 5:04, saying, howdy, Odin, howdy. Kimberly G, thanks for being here. Sahil99, what's going on, good sir? Saying, Odin, missed you on this week's episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. Tom was cosplaying John Campea, and other shills saying Superman was profitable, at least after you include streaming. Yeah, and that's the thing. The only way you can get to that is by estimating what the VOD sales have been, and there, to my knowledge at least, have not actually been any reporting on exactly how much money they've made on VOD. And from the very beginning, I've said, I think down the line, down the stretch, after its theatrical run with the post-theatrical profits, you could potentially see it make its money back. But it does not change the fact that it still ended its theatrical run with $40 million in the red, and that is, again, with the assumption that the numbers that they gave us are accurate. And there's very little reason for us to really believe those numbers, especially because of the early reporting on actual official tax documents of what the estimates were going to be for the budget of that movie. You can say all you want about how, oh, well, they just didn't spend as much as they thought they were going to. If you're overestimating, because those are documents that are being used to determine tax returns or tax rebates, if you're going to overestimate by well over $100 million, okay. To me, that just sounds like tax fraud at that point. So it's like either they committed some kind of tax fraud or they actually spent more than what they claimed to. And again, it's what the trades are saying that they've claimed because, God forbid, they actually put some real numbers out there. Kickin' Rumsky, welcome back. Thank you very much, good sir. Watching over on the Green Machine. Appreciate you. Make sure to smash that like button. Also, smash the rumble button as well. You guys are awesome. Amazing people. Snorpoopus Cuber, hello, humans and other quitters. What's going on, Snorpoopus? Welcome back. He says, hello to you. Gary of the Banjo Sandwich Worthington saying, hello to you, and I like Tron Ares. Of course you did, Gary. Of course you did. I feel like you've become, in many ways, our Alex McCarthy. If anyone remembers Alex McCarthy, he's still around. He just doesn't hang out here anymore, which makes me always sad. But he always had some of the worst takes on movies. He likes some of the worst movies out there, and it was always interesting to hear his take on things. Gary's not nearly as much of an Alex as Alex is, though. Gary usually has some pretty good takes, but his obsession with 50% scores is just mind-numbing, and apparently also now his like of Tron Ares. Now, to be fair, I have not seen the full film yet to be able to speak to the movie completely. I have seen the very beginning of it, though, and I can say from like literally the opening moments of the movie, you're just immediately kind of just thrown into the face of, oh, okay, yeah, this is still modern Disney. Let's take this clearly male-dominated IP, and now let's try to turn it into a girl brand of some kind. It's like, what? How have you not learned your lesson for these years that you've now been driving these IPs into the mud? Wendy Hunter, Wendy, who is a member on the channel, saying, Odin chat, hello, and hope everyone had a great day. I did, indeed, Wendy. We are about to enter into our fall break. We have this weird thing where we have like a day and a half this week, so we have a half day tomorrow, and then we actually get a full week off for Thanksgiving. So that's a trade-off, because normally Thanksgiving, it's like you have a couple days of school, and then you go into your Thanksgiving. But now we'll get the whole week off for Thanksgiving. But in order to get that, in order to have still enough, education days, we had to have 2 days this week, or 1.5 days at least this week. So I'm looking forward to it. Gary saying here, the Ares fans are growing. Even Blaine Crit Club liked it. Again, Gary, you know this too. Using Blaine as your reference. I love Blaine to death, but using Blaine as your reference is not good company on a lot of takes. That's the dude who hated Jaws. That's the dude who has one of the worst takes ever with his opinion on Jaws, undermining that classic of a movie. So yeah, please don't try to use Blaine to try to build yourself up there, bud. Blaine is never going to live that review down ever. Let's see. Wendy Hunter saying, I saw the trailer for Running Man, the November 2025 release, not the OG version, and it looked interesting. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know much about it, and I'm kind of happy to stay away from a lot of those trailers, because modern trailers oftentimes just give away everything and reveal everything and leave, nothing to the imagination, as it were. So I think I'd rather kind of leave it there. Now, from what I've heard, I believe it's much more of a closer adaptation to the original source material, rather than trying to be a reboot or a remake of the film. So that, I think, actually has a lot of potential to make the movie probably better than it has any right to be. So, yeah, I've not seen the trailer myself, but I've been hearing some interesting things. Gary Banjo Sandwich saying, good boy is Lassie Light. I'm sorry, but once you bring the demons into the picture, that's not Lassie Light for me. If you mean as far as how the dog is treated, okay, as long as the dog is treated well, that's nice, but still, don't really want to have anything to do with dogs and demons. Not my thing. Thanatos Felicitas. Hello, Odin. Hello, Thanatos, at 7:20 p.m. We got Forever Sci-Fi, who's a member here on the channel, saying, hail all. Hail, Forever Sci-Fi. Thanks for being here. We got Kalikioki. What's up? What's up, Kalikioki? Welcome back, dude. That's a throwback. That is quite the throwback. Keely Chow hanging out. What's going on? Justin C. hanging out too, saying, hail, perhaps Indy the dog can win Best Actor at this year's Raven Awards since the Academy snubbed him. Yeah, I mean, I obviously will not be surprised to see the dog. I assume the dog's name is Indy. That's awesome. I assume Indy will get some nominations. Personally, I would rather it just be for humans only, though I totally understand the sentiment because of how bad modern Hollywood is in many ways. Killy Chow saying, hail Odin, how are you? Thor, Freya, baby Sif, how was your weekend? It was all very good. It was again my son's birthday weekend. Turned the big 5 this weekend. Crazy times. JS Pena at 733 saying, saw Tron Ares with my dad yesterday. That soundtrack deserved a better movie. That being said, what are your thoughts on the first 2 Tron films? So the original Tron film, honestly, was not my thing. The effects were way too cheesy and corny and low budget, and it was very hard for me to get into it. Again, interesting idea and concept. I just did not like the actual execution. I don't think those effects have aged well at all. Tron Legacy was a very ambitious project that had a great score, great visuals. Movie, not very memorable for me. I've never wanted to go back to it, ever. And again, maybe if you're a hardcore Tron fan, maybe there was a little bit more there. But as someone who didn't even really like the first Tron movie, who was hoping for something a little bit more, especially with that director, and because I believe it was Joseph Kosinski who directed that film, because he also went on to do things like Oblivion, which it's a movie I love. The effects in that movie are still just so freaking beautiful. It's insane how well those effects hold up these many years later. And, you know, obviously Top Gun Maverick, amongst other things, right? The dude's been hitting it out of the park. So I really liked a lot of the technical elements of Tron Legacy. It just didn't really land for me, though, overall. It was a good first, like, major directorial debut, though, for him as a director. Xvoot saying, have you ever done an end-of-the-year breakdown of profits by studio? That would be a very interesting show to watch. I have. I want to say I might have missed the last year or two because it can just be so mentally just exhausting. You know, as someone who does cover this stuff, to actually break things down by studio and then try to figure out, especially in the cases where there are sometimes films that have multiple production studios. And then there's also the cases where actually the studios listed are the distribution studios and not the actual producers who didn't spend the actual money on it. We don't know all of the details when it comes to distribution deals. And so it becomes very tricky to get every single studio accounted for every year. So I've done it before, but yeah, I always plan to do it every single year, but then every time I just sit down to think about all the different charts I have to create and everything, it just becomes too daunting for me, even for me. Wendy Hunt is saying, you have the charts to back up the numbers. Yes, indeed, we do. And we'll get right back into the chat, but you just mentioned something that was very, very important, okay? And we went a week without it, and a week without it is already too much. Let's get started.
Time to see a real math magician at work!
That's right, everybody. It's time for some math and to see a real math magician at work. And so let's talk about Tron Ares and then also about the whole Superman situation. So first, Tron Ares, right? Over the weekend, it was initially projected. If you look and go back in time to Box Office Theory's reporting, they, in the early tracking numbers, had the film around $50 million or so for the domestic take. That was already pretty bad. For a film from Disney that was going to cost probably close to $200 million, a $50 million domestic start is not good. That would already have been a bad start. Then we get to the actual release, the actual week of release, and the Box Office Theory numbers and tracking drop and plummet down to the mid-30s for the average. And then you go to the actual weekend, and it came in even beneath that average. So a below average opening for Tron Ares here. And that was already because of the low end and the much lowered expectations. So when you're on the low end of lowered expectations, yeah, that's just a loss. That is just a failure in every single way. Going over to our chart, because we love these charts here on OMB Reviews, remember that the initial estimates for the weekend showed the film making $60.5 million globally. Well, those numbers have now adjusted, and it got worse. $59.9 million is what the actual for the weekend ended up being. So it made over $500,000 less than the initial estimate. Now, again, not the biggest discrepancy in the world. That's pretty common. That's actually a pretty standard discrepancy between an estimate and an actual, because, again, when you're going between an estimate of the information available and then the actual data being reported, you're always going to find, again, some discrepancies here and there, usually quite small. $500,000, again, to us sounds like a lot of money, but for a major studio, isn't that much of a difference. And not much of a difference because ultimately that is still a terrible opening weekend. Even with that extra $500,000, it would still be one of the worst openings that they could have possibly have had for the kind of film that it is. Now, again, the current reporting, at least as the last update that I saw, was that this film cost an estimated $180 million. Now, of course, that's according to Disney's numbers there, or at the very least the trades reporting on Disney's numbers. And we all know we should always take any numbers out of Disney with a giant grain of salt, because they are notorious for putting numbers out there that grossly underrepresent and undercount how much money they've actually spent on any project. More realistically, we could probably expect the film to have cost closer to $200 million, and that's not even accounting for the fact that Disney's spending, and Disney's marketing spending especially, are oftentimes much higher than the average. So with all that being said, we're talking about probably a minimum total cost of $270 million. That's being quite generous, I think, probably closer to $300 million if we're being honest. But even at that lower number of $180, that means a break even in today's market because of where money is made. That's a closer to a $540 million break-even point. the fact that after one weekend, it's only at $59.9 million means there's no chance that this film is going to ever get close to that break even. And since this film is currently based on the numbers being reported at $240 million in losses, we could probably expect that to end somewhere around $150 million plus. Could potentially even be closer to $200 million in the red. And if those numbers ever get released and we find out that the film actually cost a lot more than that, oh man, it could get that much worse for the film. Even Tony over at Deadline, right, had to finally be honest. These are the trades that always run with these headlines, and even when films are doing objectively terrible, they still try to paint the rosiest picture for certain studios, more so than anyone else. But Tony finally had to be open and honest here by saying box office grid dims to 33+ million opening Sunday box office estimate. And again, here are the excuses, everybody, because we all know if anyone's going to run cover for you as a major studio, it's Tony at Deadline. He will always run cover for his friends and for the major studios, especially. He has the access media. He is one of the biggest problems ever when it comes to box office coverage. It says, with an MLB playoff game between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners and 12 NFL games today, Disney's Tron Ares isn't pumping a wheelie this weekend, slowing down to $33.5 million at the domestic box office and $60.5 million, which is now adjusted down to $59.9 million instead. Tony. Debut. Originally, it was expected that the Jared Leto movie would clear 40 to 45 million with an 80 to 90 million global. And guess what? Even if that were the case, Tony, that would still not have been good. It's even worse that it only made 60, but if it had only made 90 million off a $180 million budget, that would also still be bad. But they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to be honest with you about these numbers. They're never going to be honest with you when it comes to these things. His goes on. It says, as we told you yesterday, this is deja vu of Blade Runner 2049 all over again, which had a similar budget to Tron Ares, exact same indigenous people's holiday release as Columbus Day. Tony. Nope, it always has been Columbus Day. It always will be Columbus Day. And if that's honestly the direction that you want to go in, okay. You don't like Columbus because of the supposed atrocities he committed? Again, not going into that here because that's not my place. But I will say, so are you also then going to go into very similar types, if sometimes not even worse atrocities that were done by some of these indigenous people? So if it's all about, again, praising people that have done terrible things, guess what? What you've replaced it with ain't much better. And again, I could go off a whole tangent about what's wrong there, but oh my goodness, it's Columbus Day, Tony. Oh, the world we live in. It's crazy. Same $40 million forecast and under delivery stateside with $32.7 million debut. 4-day Blade Runner was $37.2 million. I think a big difference, of course, is that that film was able to do a little bit more. In 2010, Tron Legacy's $400 million global take and $44 million domestic opening was considered an all right, though not slam dunk success, which again is a bunch of word salad. And speaking of word salad, that's exactly what the defense of Superman has been like, and that's why we go over to our friends at World of Real, who oftentimes are one of the only ones actually reporting data and information as comes in. They were, one of the sites to report on the estimated budget based off of the tax filing that they themselves put forward. But again, don't believe your lying eyes, as it were. But here is the article here referring to the big article from Forbes, which is kind of what broke everything open here. But it says, Warner Brothers has been patting itself on the back, quietly boasting to the trades about $125 million in profits for Superman. First, that is complete nonsense. If you're looking at the theatrical, and again, that is always what I look at. So anyone who wants to try to argue about me hating on this movie more than anything else, I always talk about these numbers. I always talk about it from the perspective of theatrical success or loss. And in a lot of cases, when those numbers get close to the break even, I almost always give benefit of the doubt and saying, you know what, this film will probably make some money down the road. But if you're losing $50 to $100 million, that puts you in quite a deep hole. And that's going to cut into your overall net profits. In the case of Superman, here are the facts. Here's the truth, okay? The film underperformed in almost every single way. $650 million, again, to us as regular people, sounds like a lot of money. But hey, F1, which didn't do much of anything in the beginning and did not have nearly as much marketing behind it in many respects, let alone a name recognition like James Gunn for directing, no, that film actually ended up making $628 million and actually ended up beating the total box office of James Gunn's Superman. Now, because of a massive budget, that film ended up being $96 million in the red. But this is also a situation where Apple already sold distribution rights to everything except for the premium streaming rights, which means, guess what? F1 was already in a great position to make money for a lot of the studios that were involved. The same cannot be said for Superman. That was a Warner Brothers project. That was, again, a massive budget, and they can claim whatever budgets they want to. According to what was being reported at the time of the release of the film, they were saying the film cost $225 million, which would mean a total spend of around $337 based off of your typical marketing spend. Now, again, I think that the budget's probably a lot higher than that. I saw some estimates saying it was as high as $255 million. I would be surprised if it's even higher than that, not to mention marketing cost. Now, again, according to the reporting from Warner Brothers, right, they were saying that the film, right, cost $225 million and had another $125 million. So they said that the total cost of the film was $350 million. So they actually admit that the film costs more than even what my charting has to account for. And so let's actually go ahead and put that in for a second, because let's use their numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because if you then take that into account, that minus $40 million goes all the way up to minus $51 million. Whether it's one or the other doesn't really matter, because ultimately it still ends as a financial loss. And again, that's using their numbers there. Warner Brothers reportedly, the reports out there in the trades was $225 million for your actual budget, $125 million in global marketing. Now, they did a 50-50 split. The issue with that is that it's actually higher domestically. You get about 55% back domestically, and then it's a lot less internationally, where you only get about 40%, not including only 25% in China. So if you take those things into account and the numbers that they had floated out there, I'm sorry, you get nowhere close to $125 million in net profits just from the theatrical release alone. So a $40 to $50 million flop, guess what? Anything in the tens of millions of dollars in the red has always been, up until this movie apparently, considered to be a flop. Now, even films that flop, like for instance, we go back to a film that I really liked, Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow was a flop, but we also know that that film had a lot of life on VOD, most especially on physical media, and it got a lot more attention and likely was able to make its money back because of that down the line. That's why they actually greenlit a sequel for that movie. That's not really what's happening here with Superman, okay? It's $40 to $50 million in the red. Sure, you have the hardcore gun nuts that probably went out of their way to overspend on the VOD price for the movie, and are probably continuing to spend even more money on the Blu-ray 4K physical media sales. Okay. So you could argue, right, that with all of those things accounted for, and with streaming numbers and everything else that we don't have the actual data for, that it's made $50 million back. Maybe. But again, even then, it's still talking about getting 100% of anything in that regard, and we know they don't get 100% of the box office, 100% of the streaming numbers of VOD sales. They'd still have to split that with the different online marketers. They get a lot better return on those numbers than they do theatrically. That is absolutely a fact, but still not 100%. Still not a 1-to-1 ratio. So again, even though I'm more than willing to admit that Superman will at some point, maybe already, we don't know, but at some point it absolutely will break even, but not theatrically. Theatrically, the box office facts and data tell us that film flopped at the box office. Not nearly as bad as Tron Ares is flopping at the box office, but they're both in the red, and when you're in the red by tens of millions of dollars, in almost every case, we've always called that a flop, but for some reason, some people just cannot accept reality. So, anyway, glad to see that Forbes and some of the trades are finally starting to put a spotlight on some of the nonsense that has been surrounding this movie. Again, it just really does just drive me nuts, the people that are simping for this movie. To the point where when you're simping for the film, for any movie or for anything, to the point where you start to eject reasoning itself from the discussion, that I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. All right, Kincaid and Rumsky heading back in the chat, 7:35. It is now 8:01, so about 30 minutes behind, but we'll get there. King and Rumsky saying, I was hoping for a better excuse for missing last week. Like maybe you didn't want to talk about the garbage movies out last week. Oh, well, your excuse was okay too, I guess. Yeah, I would hope so. I would definitely hope so. Kili Kiyoki saying, you should have not been missing Odin on Saturday. I mean, I wish, like, I was like so close to being like, I got to jump on because I got to spit out facts. I got to push against this nonsense. Because then like it looked like everyone else that was coming on was just backing up the same lie. And I was like, so there's no pushback on this? I did not get to watch the host show, so I don't know if Dutch, shout out to Dutch, love Dutch. I don't know if Dutch Butters was able to like start to push back because I don't think he was as big of a fan of that movie either, and so has had some more criticism. But I don't know if there was actually any like legit pushback against just, again, the lies that were being pushed out there. It's always funny when it's like, oh, you know, what facts do you have? It's like, literally, I have the only facts that we have available to us. When you start talking about VOD and streaming, we don't have those numbers. We have a lot when it comes to projected production cost and marketing spend, and also the typical standard, followed by almost everything else. When it comes to movies and releases, we don't really have anything when it comes to the VOD sales. Bianca Zombies hanging out over on the Green Machine. Welcome back. Rob D. Hello, Odin. Has Jared Leto ever had a financially successful film aside from Suicide Squad 2016? We all know Jared Leto was not the reason people saw that film. Even that film, I would not describe it as the biggest of successes. Definitely better than what modern day superhero films have been. But let me go ahead and see if I can actually pull up that film specifically and get an idea of it. But I mean, he's been in films that have been successful to a certain degree. What I would argue, though, is people are not either seeing or not seeing movies because he is in it. I don't think he moves the needle really at all in either the positive or the negative direction. So the total gross for Suicide Squad 2016 did end up doing $750 million. That was on a $175 million budget. So yeah, you still made 4.3 times the production budget. But here's the big question that I have. Where was the majority of those international numbers? Okay, this is actually good for the movie. It did not get, according to the numbers.com at least, it did not get a China release. That's huge. That's big. Now, it still got a vast majority of its money internationally, where you get much less return on your investment, about 40% of your box office. So I would still say, on paper, it looks like it probably still broke even, but it wasn't the biggest money maker in the world as far as net profit because of that massive budget. $175 million is nothing to ignore there. But anyway, yeah, so I don't think that, again, I would say that's definitely a box office success. Wouldn't call it a hit, but definitely a success nonetheless. Jared Leto, I'm trying to think about other films that he has been in. Let me see if I can pull up his, let's see, as an actor. They have that broken down. Let's see. He was in Fight Club, though that film was not, let me see, 1999's Fight Club. Numbers.com has that film at $100 million, a $65 million production budget. Oh, man, I actually had no idea that film was a theatrical flop. It only made 1.6 times its budget. Now, again, break-even wasn't as high as it is today because of domestic international splits and other things like it, but that's still not great. 1.6 times the budget. So crazy that even a film that most would consider to be one of the better films of all time also didn't make its money back. He was then in... It's another film I recognize as Girl Interrupted, American Psycho, not much of a box office sensation there. Requiem for a Dream, also. Didn't do much as far as the direct box office is concerned. He was in Alexander. That one, let's see, $167 million globally, but a $155 million budget, only made 1.1 times the budget. Oof. He's had a pretty... He really hasn't had... that much good luck here in box office. He did the Dallas Buyers Club. That was, I think, one of his better movies. $60 million there off of a $5 million. Okay, there you go. Okay, so the last mega hit, and that's just comparing your budget to your return on investment. The last mega hit he had was Dallas Buyers Club, because that film made $60 million worldwide, but the budget was only $5 million. It made 12.1 times its budget. So that was the last massive hit he had. Suicide Squad, we could say it was successful. Blade Runner 2049, again, had a massive budget problem. Morbius is hilarious, but still not great. Yeah, so he has not had a lot of luck when it comes to his numbers. Jeremy Zakowski saying, evening Odin and everyone on here, I'm sorry I'm a bit late. No problem at all, Jeremy Zakowski. I started a couple of minutes late as my son was delaying things. It was his birthday, so we kind of let him get away with that a little bit. Let's see. Thanatos Lisa saying, Gunn is the reason I am not watching anything from DC. I don't blame you. The dude is a degenerate. For Sci-Fi, I managed to get in on the Tron and Tron Legacy 4K Steelbooks, and I did open them even though they are collectibles. Hey, man, I'm all about collecting, but I'm also all about practicality, and it's like you get them to watch them. The ones who get, again, I understand like collecting and values and stuff like that, but for me, it's like movies should be watched. I don't know. That's just me. General Wingster is in the chat. Kalikioki, would you call Superman a flop? Yeah, absolutely. Theatrically. Again, and that's the game that I play, guys. I'm always about the theatrical. Just like I would say theatrically, even a film like F1 is a flop. The difference there is that there are at least deals that we are aware of, that we know of, between Apple selling the distribution rights to their movie and basically selling the rights to their film completely except for premium streaming. So that eventually when it goes on streaming, and by the way, look at the trajectory of those two movies, right? F1 starts off slow, legs out to well over $600 million, beats Superman. Superman has, a decent start, not the biggest opening in the world, has some legs, but nothing crazy. It still did an average run. Like, it still had a completely average run at the box office when it comes to total global box office, and where most films end up going after the first couple weekends. Completely average. Which, again, I guess you could argue at least it wasn't below average. Compare that to a film like F1, which, again, just in almost every single way, just blows it out of the water. Let me see if I can get a comparison here for a second between those two movies. So, for instance, F1 made 46.6% of its box office in the first 2 weekends. So it more than doubled its box office after the first 2 weeks. So it made 4.3 times its opening. So it had a multiplier of 4.3. And then compared to its second weekend, a multiplier of 2.1. Compare that to James Gunn's Superman. That film made 66% of its box office in its first 2 weeks. So 66% versus 46%. Huge advantage to F1 as far as legs. And then compared to opening weekend, Superman had a 2.8 multiplier. Still nothing compared to the F1's 4.3 multiplier. And then 1.5 multiplier for 2 weeks for Superman versus the 2.14 multiplier for F1, the movie. So F1 ate its lunch. And again, differing financials behind F1. Superman, the only way to argue that the film made money is by saying, well, it obviously made some sales on VOD already. Yes, I would agree with you. And I think the gun nuts are passionate enough to where you could potentially say maybe they did make $50 million in money. But it's Warner Brothers. So they're not making money off of streaming because they're going to just bring it to their own service. Now, they might claim to sell it to themselves, but HBO Max, they don't get profit from that. That's, again, a pure game of subscription and subscription fees. VOD sales, yeah, you already got something there. Physical media sales, yeah, sure. Some try to then argue merchandising it. It's like, look, how much of that merchandising sales are actually direct results of this new movie versus just general Superman sales? In fact, there's a person who is probably making these same types of arguments who would then also not have accepted when TMNT, the movie, tried to do the same thing. Remember when the animated TMNT with Seth Rogen was claimed by Tony at Deadline to have been one of the most profitable films of the year. And then when you looked at his charting, he had a couple things wrong. First, he included the sale of the product to the studio itself for the streaming rights, which is, again, a complete joke. But then also, even though no other film had this, it then said, oh, by the way, here's the merchandising sales estimates. So we call out and criticize when that one does it, but then we're going to include it in the numbers. Because, again, the only way you get to a break even or profit for Superman is if you are being disingenuous by trying to include sales that really cannot be even accounted for at this point. Geek True 64 at 741. What's going on, brother? Let's see. Saying here, I had fun with Superman 2025. Liked the positivity of the movie. Bro, what positivity? I mean, sure, you could say that there's some positive elements of it. Like, to me, one of the worst arguments supporting it is, well, at least it wasn't as dark as Man of Steel. It's like, that doesn't mean that it's good. Despite the problems, but objectively, it is probably a low mid-tier, not the worst or the best. Too much hyperbole around it. Bro, Geek Truth, if you've not seen Little Platoon's breakdown, I wouldn't say that you have to watch all 4 hours of the video. I'm only about 45 minutes in myself, but I would highly recommend it because it explains exactly why, from the writing, again, just from the objective standpoint, how bad it is. J.S. Pena. Blaine also hated Godzilla -1, just putting that out there. I forgot he had. I'll have to go back for that, man. Dude, that's a garbage take. Man, Godzilla -1's so good. Guillermo Gage, what's going on, brother? Welcome back over on the Green Machine. You got Morak. We got the Morak saying, good evening, Odin. Happy Columbus Day. Happy Columbus Day, Morak. Welcome. Appreciate you for being here. Thanks for being a member here on the channel. Geek364, who is a member, saying, I watched Tron Ares in IMAX. I'm a big Legacy fan. From that perspective, it was frustratingly bad. Another lower mid-tier movie. Not one I care to revisit. I'll rewatch Legacy for the 20th time. Dude, okay, nice. But also, dang, dude, that's crazy. It's honestly crazy how bad this movie is being reported to be, basically. It's crazy. Let's see. Sacre Bleu, the Deadly Poke of Zora. What's going on, Sacre Bleu? Saying, hello, Odin. I demand for DC to release a gun cut, but given what we saw in Peacemaker and what the guy likes to tweet about, I would rather not see his unfiltered vision for Superman. Here's the thing. We got his unfiltered vision, or at the very least, that which he was willing to put forward on film. We already got that. It was clear from that movie that he had full control over it, because what happens when you have James Gunn's mind, but actually being focused and pointed in a direction and given some limits, you end up getting the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. What happens when you just let him run with it? You get Superman, you get Peacemaker, and I think this shows us that he is his own worst enemy at this point. He is his own worst enemy. Guillermo Gage over on Green Machine, thank you for the $4 Rumble rant, good sir, saying, I wouldn't consider it to be demons, really, with the movie Good Boy, without giving away the plot. I mean, it's supposed to be a horror film about dogs. I feel like demons are a part of that. Again, please, I don't mind it. I don't mind if it's a basic plot point. I don't think that's a spoiler. But again, I wouldn't know. I have not seen the film myself. Wendy Hunter saying, math, that's the stuff. King and Rumsky, that's the stuff I've been missing. I knew that you would enjoy it. I knew you would. Guillermo Gage, Odin, I think you might like the show Demon Slayer. If you watched an episode every other day, you could see Infinity Castle by February. Yeah, I could do that, but I don't have the time at this point. I haven't even been able to keep up with my watching of the original Star Trek series. Or to watch a film like Tron Ares, or a couple other films that have recently released. I still need to get all the way through the Smashing Machine, which is actually not bad. It's actually it's got a lot of good stuff for it. Kimberly G said, ouch, not even 40 million. Yeah, Tron Ares flopped. Let's see. Jeremy Zukowski. Some media are blaming long COVID for Ares' underperformance. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? It continues to be the gift that keeps on giving. It continues to be the excuse that they keep on giving on. It's just, guys, give it up. It's not working. COVID ended a long time ago at this point, and even though there were films that got caught in production hell because of it, even if you could say that objectively that is true, you can't use it as an excuse anymore, because nothing can excuse your marketing for your movies. I mean, you have the ability to control the way that the film comes out, to make changes, and most especially how to market the movie. We already know you can market movies that are just not great very effectively. I would argue personally that Barbie is up there. I thought Barbie was a trash film, and yet the marketing was brilliant. As much as I hated that movie, I will absolutely give an A+ to the marketing. The marketing was top notch. See, King and Rumsky tags say, it's Tron in time. It's Tron in time. Let's see. Guillermo Gage, thank you for another $5 Rumble rant. If you wonder why I saw Taylor Swift, I guess curiosity for the audience. Also, I didn't know if the material would be released digitally. It was videos for all 12 songs. Bro, why in the world would you? I understand curiosity to a point, but dude, to spend good money on a glorified music video for someone like Taylor Swift? Come on. You're better than that. You're better than that. Wendy Hunter. Wendy! Wow, even Tony was honest. Yeah. He occasionally can be honest, but even when he's being honest, still goes out of his way to shill. Wendy saying, struck what I just said. Exactly. I appreciate that in real time. It was like, oh, look, he's being honest. No, but never mind. Seal99, can you please explain how Tron Ares needs $500+ million to break even, but at the moment it's only at $241 million loss after grossing only $60 million? Shouldn't it be $440 million roughly right now? Thanks. Because remember, the break even is what it needs to make with your typical splits, right? So remembering that the studio gets between 40 and 55% of the box office, depending on whether it's domestic or international. If it were to hit $500+ million at the global box office, with those numbers in mind, right? With that, with those splits in mind, it would then bring it down to, or rather, it would then, that reaching that level, reaching that break-even point is called the break-even because if you take that and then you math it out, basically, you get to a zero count, right? You get to a break-even, right? It takes that much money to make up how much you put into your movie because of how little they get, or at least because of the breakdown of how much they actually get. So because they only get about 55% domestically, 40% internationally, you take that into account, and then you can kind of reverse engineer that, extrapolate, oh, if it hits this number, then $500 million equates to a net of a certain value. So think of it more so that way, right? A $500+ million break even is what the total box office needs to be for its net gain to match its total cost. So, for instance, pulling up the chart for a second, using the case of Tron Ares, right? So I have the break even at $540 million. So basically, in order to make a net of $270, because that was what its total cost was, right? It cost a total estimated budget and marketing together, a total cost of $270. In order to get those splits to work for the movie, it needs to make $540 worldwide. If it hits $540, then that means that it has a net gain of $270. So obviously a cost of $270, a net gain of $270, those wipe each other out, brings you down to zero, and now anything you make after is net profit. Hopefully that breakdown made some sense. Took me a little while to get there, but my brain is tired. Jasmine Dragon, heyo, what is up, my dude? What's up, Super? Sorry I'm so late, no problem. As you're late, Keely Chow is leaving early. How dare you? Guillermo Gage, another Rumble rant, saying, I saw the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie thing 2 years ago for the same reason as the release party of Showgirl Curiosity. Bro, I'm sorry. You saw both of those? I don't think curiosity is the reason. I think you're a Swiftie. Guillermo Gage, I think that you might be a secret Swiftie. Maybe a not-so-secret Swiftie. Kilikiogi, Dutch did not push back. Well, that makes me sad. Bad Dutch. I'm disappointed in Dutch. I'm going to have to call him out next weekend. Part of me is also like, all right, let me go ahead and just relitigate everything that y'all did in that stream because clearly y'all did not have someone to push back with actual facts and data. Justin C. The Black Phone 2 opens this week. Ooh, that's right. Hopefully it'll be a solid film. Need a good film to use my free AMC birthday popcorn and drink on before October is over. Ooh, I forgot that they do the free popcorn and drink. About to say, because my birthday was end of September, so I think mine would probably still be on there too. It's been so long since I've actually been to the theater. because the showtimes are always terrible at night. By the time my son gets to bed, there's like no way to get to the theater in time. And then also, I'm just so tired at night, I fall asleep, even in films that I enjoy. So it's been tough going on that one. That's why I love the summertime. There's so many more showtime availabilities. That's also why I hate how Hollywood has been, because in the heyday of Hollywood, because they were putting out great films and it drove more people to the theaters, it made it so that you could be guaranteed to have theaters around you having 10 a.m. showings. And if you have a 10 a.m. showing, that means you can see up to like 3 movies in a day before the workday is over. But because the box office has been so bad and because the movies haven't been good, a lot of the theaters, at least around me, don't open until maybe noon or 1 p.m. And that's like, I get maybe one movie in me. Maybe. Geek264 is a member saying, I'm still waiting to get my Tron Legacy 4K Steelbook. Pre-ordered it on day 1, and Amazon keeps delaying my delivery a month late now. Amazon pre-orders are consistently inconsistent. I know, it is really crazy. And it's sad, too. I finally was able to, I was catching up with some older videos, and I was able to finally catch up with your October breakdown. There were some really big ones in there that I was interested in, like especially like the Back to the Future one. For me, the Back to the Future, I already have the 35th anniversary, the 4K. Actually, I have a couple editions. I've got the 4K Steelbook set. I actually got that from like a birthday gift. I have the Flux Capacitor one. So that was like the 35th anniversary Flux Capacitor right there. And then I think I have like another one. I have like 3 different, again, it's one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I love that stuff. But anyway, great video. Geek364, check him out. Great physical media channel. Jenna Wingster, happy Indigenous Columbus Day. Odin, how dare you? How dare you? Xvoot, did you like the original Super Troopers? The original Super Troopers is hilarious. In all the worst ways. In all the worst ways. The schnozberries taste like schnozberries. Can I get a liter of cola? A liter of cola. So good. That I used to quote that film all the time. Super Troopers 2 was a disappointment. It wasn't the worst sequel I've seen. It just, they clearly waited too long. It just wasn't as good. Jenna Wingster, thank you very much for becoming a citizen of Asgard once again. Jenna Wingster, I come to you now. I come to you now at the turn of the tide.
Bilbo Baggins, I am not some conjurer of cheap tricks. I'm not here to rob you. I'm trying to help you.
It's one of my favorite lines. When you're a dad, especially of younger kids, when they're driving you crazy, sometimes you just like say random stuff. So there were a couple of times when my daughter, when the lady Sif was a baby, and I would just randomly start going off doing a doing a Gandalf voice like that, and she would find it so funny. I would do that voice, and then I would do the Gollum voice, and for some reason, she just loved it. She thought it was hilarious. F1 was re-released twice, though. It doesn't matter. I mean, it gets re-released because people are still watching, dude. King and Rumsky, are you a male thespian? I guess you could say so. Theater. Jenna Wingster, hi chat, hello. Say hello to everyone with his new membership. The Clamor Bros, welcome back. Tag to say, if you just hate 2025 Superman, in your opinion, what do you think is the best Superman? So, and again, objectively, 2025 Superman is not good. Again, there's a little channel called Little Platoon that breaks down, it's a 4-hour video, but it breaks down why objectively it is a bad movie. Again, you can enjoy the film. I cannot take away your subjective enjoyment of it, but subjective enjoyment is not the same as objective reality. But as far as my favorite Superman, honestly, with how I grew up, I love Smallville version of Superman. I love that show. Obviously, I think the best Superman overall is Christopher Reeve, even though, honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the first Superman. I know that's heresy, and people go crazy anytime I mention that. But I have a big problem with, one, Lex Luthor just randomly figuring out everything about him with no information. It's like, look, I understand someone can be smart, but there's being smart to figure things out, and then there's being smart for the sake of the plot, and then the plot says, oh, you can just figure anything out. It's like, no, I'm sorry. You got to show me how you get there. It's kind of ridiculous. And then the issue when he flies around the Earth to turn it back in time, and all of the issues that brings up, like time travel is always messy. That's why I prefer it in films like Back to the Future, because of how because of what kind of movie it doesn't need to be, following the laws of physics in every way and being perfect. It's breakdown. As long as it makes sense within the framework of the movie, and it does, that's why it works. That's why it's fun. Same cannot be said for a film like Superman, for instance, the original. But no doubt about it, Christopher Reeve is an amazing Superman. Like, one of my favorite things, even though I'm not a huge fan of that film, I love Christopher Reeve in that movie. And one of my favorite scenes is still the one where he is, dressed as Clark Kent, and she turns away for a moment, and then he all of a sudden his whole body language changes, and you're just like, that's acting. He was able to, just by his body position and facial everything, go from Clark Kent to Superman like that. It was amazing. That is, I think, just peak Superman stuff. But Smallville is still also my favorite too, because that's what I grew up with. Jenna Wingster, Wendy Hunter, only when someone nice fills them in. Goes on to say, so I finally started watching Yu-Gi-Oh! For the first time on sub. Do you have fond childhood memories of the 4K kids English dubs like I do? Wait. So you mean like the joke? Attention, duelist. My hair gives me super strength. Like that stuff. I love those. It's just like the team, was it Team 4-Star that did the Dragon Ball Z English dub? Those are also hilarious. Call me. Then Mr. Popo. Oh, everything with Mr. Popo with the team, was it Team 4-Star? Was just amazing. But yeah, also, I think that's the 4Kids one, English dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also fantastic. I also love the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series myself. It was a fun card game too. Connor Blues, did you ever watch Smallville? Yes, I did. And so what are your thoughts on it? Loved it. Great series. Went on way too long. It started to get a bit repetitive towards the end. I'm actually still watching it again. I've seen it once all the way through, and then I'm watching it right now with the wife, and we've taken a little bit of a break. We haven't watched an episode in months at this point. That kind of was what happens when the school year starts up, especially. Let's see. Geek Truth saying, in regards to Superman 2025 positivity, I mean, I liked that it didn't take itself too seriously and wasn't dark. It was like a Saturday morning cartoon. The movie, of course, had its problems, but that was also one of my biggest issues because it didn't know when to be serious. Anytime it was serious for even a moment, they had to crack a joke. That's your typical MCU level humor. And it's very grating. Gee, what's going on, Gee? Happy late birthday. I think your birthday popcorn expires since your birthday was September. You can use your birthday popcorn from 9:01 to 9:30. Well, if that's the case, that makes me sad. Jenna Wingster, I got the Back to the Future 30th anniversary collection, I believe. Yeah, that's the thing is I love it, but every 5 years to come out with a new set is just ridiculous. It's just crazy. So that's why I have these 3 sets because I think with my own money got the flux capacitor one. And then I think I may have gotten the 4K one in a set to do for giveaways. And then for my birthday, that's when I got the 4K Steelbook set that they released. Rob D, did you upgrade a lot of your Blu-rays to 4K? If so, how do you decide which to upgrade and which not? No, I mean, I have a lot of 4Ks now, but honestly, the ones I typically get, the most common 4Ks I get now are 4K Steelbooks. And normally it's, even if I own the movie on Blu-ray, my mindset is, okay, obviously, is this a movie I like that I think is worth buying? It's the first question. And then from there, it's what's the price? Right? And then after that, it's, okay, what is the packaging like? Because the 4K Steelbook, the reason why I like 4K Steelbooks are because usually the packaging is just phenomenal. And it's great. So this is an example. Some things I've bought recently. I have not done a Blu-ray collection video in a long time because, oh my goodness, they are just insane, especially when you have a massive collection like this. But for my people on Discord who are in the giveaways chat, right? That's my Keeper the Bifrost level members. So that's YouTube members, Patreon, Subscribestar. Keeper the Bifrost level and above get access to a giveaways channel on my Discord. And I haven't done anything really for October yet, but don't worry, I make things up down the line. But one of the things that I'll be giving away soon is it's the 4-movie 4K set of the Batman. So it's Batman. So again, I know the Joel Schumacher Batman films are objectively terrible. Here's a great example of something that I love that I can be honest about, okay? So it's got first the 1989 Batman, which is phenomenal, Batman Returns, which is also solid, and then it has Batman Forever, which I love, grew up with that movie, as bad as it is objectively, and then the even worse Batman and Robin. But oh my goodness, Batman and Robin is so freaking funny. So funny. Hey everybody, chill. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. I love it. So good. But anyway, that'll be given away also. This is one of my favorite films of the last couple of years. 2024, best animated film that year. And also one of my favorite films of that year. That's the film Flow on Criterion. This one finally came in. Love it. My kids love it too. My son was actually a big fan. For a film that has no dialogue too. That's how good the animation is in that one. But anyway, I got a copy of that I'll be giving away on that channel too. And then I've already mentioned this one before, but I just love this steelbook so much. And that's The Flight Risk. The film's not great. So that's an example of one where I bought it because I thought the steelbook was so clever, and I thought that there were people who follow me who are in the giveaways who might actually really enjoy something like that, and I was correct. But I love this one because look at this. This is the most practical, best use case of a 4K steelbook slipcover, and this is also why Lionsgate is the best in the game when it comes to steelbooks. Look at this. Boom. Like, again, one of the biggest things and biggest laughs that the whole movie has is when you realize that his hair is fake and he's balding. And it's just like, that's, of course, you got to make the steelbook that. You got to make the steelbook that. Ah, so clever. Wish the movie was as good as the steelbook. The steelbook and the artwork for this is so much better than the actual movie itself. All right, let's see. Geek264 at 825 saying, thanks for watching, Odin. I buy Back to the Future trilogy repeatedly too. I like the steelbook designs, but honestly want to get the first one for the 90 minutes of new special features. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. I'm like, what new special features could you have at this point? Let me know. Forever Sci-Fi, I usually don't watch the original Superman past the scene where he saves Air Force One. Yeah, I don't blame you. Jenna Wingster, I was talking about the original English dub on Warner Brothers Kids back in the day. Oh, okay, gotcha. That one's good too. Again, I really do like original Yu-Gi-Oh! I never watched the original sub version of it with the original Japanese. I'm used to the English voice actors for that. Because again, when you're a kid, you don't really care much for, nor do you have any real even desire to watch anything with subtitles. Again, everyone's a little bit different, but I think in general, we could say most people probably not really fond of the subtitles when you're a kid, at least. So I've actually never heard the original Japanese for it. Geek64, agree on Smallville. It is probably my favorite version of Superman, even though we never actually saw him in the suit. Yeah, and I think it was, oh my goodness. Tom Welling, right? Clark Kent, Tom Welling, who was very adamant about not wanting to be seen in the suit because I think it was like not necessarily an ego thing, but it was he didn't want to have to actually work out to be able to fill the suit, basically. Because I mean, he was always jacked, but also he was not jacked to the point of like Superman, to fill the suit the way that some of the others have historically. I think that was a part of the reason, though. Wendy Hunter saying, I know Batman and Robin is bad, but I love watching. Exactly. It's the epitome of a terrible movie, but it's so funny. Objectively terrible, subjectively hilarious. Geek64 saying, good comparison. Batman Forever and Superman 2025. Objectively not good, but subjectively could be a fun watch depending on the person. Yeah. I would argue, though, Batman Forever is a much more entertaining movie. Absolutely. I would rather watch Batman Forever and Batman and Robin 1,000 times than ever watch Superman 2025 ever again. Because it's got nothing. It's got nothing for me. It's got no actual intrinsic value. It does nothing to move that universe forward in any meaningful way. I have no desire to find out what happens to any of those characters. It's a dud. Rob D. The funniest thing I remember about Batman and Robin is the fact that Batman not only has a credit card, never leave the cape without it, but it's also connected to a bank that only Batman uses. I know. It's hilarious. Not to mention, of course, you've got George Clooney being George Clooney in a Batman mask. So funny. Forever Sci-Fi. I lost a lot of respect for Tom Welling when he showed up at one of those Warner Brothers crossover episodes years later as a Superman who gave up his powers. You know what? I didn't lose respect for him for that, because that is going into the what's it called? Crisis on Infinite. Is it the Crisis on Infinite Earths event? So I had no issue with that. I wish he was in a better show. That was the bigger problem, was that the overarching show he was in and that universe that they were doing, like the whole CW was falling apart at that point. So, yeah. Now, one of the coolest things he's done, I've not seen every episode of it, but he and Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor on the show, have been doing a rewatch of the series, and they have a podcast, Talkville, and it's a lot of fun. They bring in a lot of other actors to talk about certain episodes, and they just go through it, break things down, talk about their behind-the-scenes experiences, too. Yeah. Good stuff. Jonah Wingster, bat credit card, never leave the cave without it. Yeah, seriously. I like how on it, it's an unlimited card. So it has, like, unlimited value, unlimited credit. Oh, it's such a stupid concept. It's such a stupid concept, and yet it is still so funny. I love it. All right. We are about right at time. It's about an hour and 15 minutes in, and about 27 people still watching. So thank you all very much for watching this evening. But I have caught up with the chat, and I've talked basically about everything that I was wanting to talk about. Really, we had open forum to get y'all's conversation and questions in, and we did. I guess the only thing that I would kind of add to it is please to pray for the Diocese of Knoxville. Our bishop has decided to eliminate the Latin Mass in our diocese. We just found out about this yesterday. I've already been posting about this on social media. How heartbroken I am. So many of us, we honestly we feel like we are being attacked by this. Some really bad comments made by the pastor as well, which again felt like a personal attack in many ways. And so just pray for us, because it's a very difficult time. Because it's not just about you're losing this mass that you have a special attachment to. I mean, the mass is not just the mass. The Latin Mass is not just the Latin Mass. It's not just the smells and bells. It's the entire ecclesiology established by it. And again, I know I'm speaking way over people's heads in general, but just, again, if you can pray for us in our diocese, because it's already a struggle. It's going to be an even bigger struggle as we get closer to this winding down, because a lot of us are at the churches that we are at because of the offering of the Latin Mass. And with it now not going to be there in the next month or so, some places actually get it up through like December 28th. Ours is going away a lot faster. Ours is going away in November. A lot of us are like, we don't know what to do. And obviously we cannot abandon the church because it is the bark of Peter. But also at the same time, my children have only ever really experienced the Latin Mass. And I don't really want them, even if it's a Reverend Novus Ordo, I don't really want them to experience that form of the liturgy with everything I know about it, with how it came together. Because it's not just a mass from the council. It was literally Frankenstein monster put together through the process of a concilium. If you've never seen Mass of the Ages, it's a phenomenal documentary going through the liturgical reform. But yeah, pray for us. I'd really appreciate it. Wendy Hunter, thanks for the great stream and have a nice night, everyone. You as well. Kimberly G, you have a great night. Also, I'm sure I'm speaking just gibberish to most people out there, but I had to get that off my chest because it is, again, it's a very disheartening time. And we're not getting a lot of support, unfortunately, in kind of what we're going through, which is sad. But you guys seriously are amazing and beautiful people. I love you guys. Thank you all again for understanding. See you on FNT, Justin C. Yes, indeed.
Attention, duelist. My hair is leaving the chat. Good night, everyone.
Yes, Jitter Winkster.
Attention, duelist.
I love it. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you all for understanding me not being able to jump on last week. Thank you for understanding me being a little late today. And we should be on normal schedule going ahead. Obviously, once December comes around, things will get a little bit crazy. Kimberly G saying, "Oh, I understand. That's sad. My sister is losing her church. That's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that." Q64, sorry to hear that, Odin. Not familiar with Catholicism too much, but prayers. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Forever Sci-Fi, good night and God bless. God bless you, Forever Sci-Fi. And again, thank you everyone out there for your prayers. And yeah, a lot to be thankful for too. Again, we're seeing peace in our time in an area of the world that just most of us probably never thought we could see with peace. Obviously, we have to see where things go. Still very early stages, but pray for peace. Pray for us. Pray for the Diocese of Charlotte, which has also gone through a lot when it comes to their bishop attacking them, and to all the dioceses that across our nation and world are just giving into this tyranny, which is just, again, awful. But I love you guys. You guys are amazing, beautiful people. See y'all on Friday Night Tights, Salty Saturday stream, or, of course, in the comments section of the box office preview for this upcoming weekend. Someone mentioned the Black Phone 2 coming out. I think it'll probably take the #1 spot because Lord knows Tron Ares ain't going to be doing nothing. So we'll look and see and talk about all that coming up in the next few days. And fall break coming up. So hopefully going to catch up on some giveaways in the giveaways channel and also be able to, be a little bit more active and catching up on certain things. But I love you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, a blessed Monday. As always, God bless. And now let me give a shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my Patreon members, Father Luca Illick, hail to you, Father, and also to Miss Mountain Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Mountain Muses. She is very lovely, great, awesome Catholic faith-based content over there. You'll also find over on Subscribestar my member Matt317. He is on Twitch with the same channel name, Matt317. Shout out to you, good sir. And also to a longtime member here, Mr. Roy, my Chosen of Valhalla member here on YouTube. Mr. Roy, thank you for always hanging out and for always being a part of this channel. It does mean a lot, as well as it does for all of my Chosen of Valhalla members. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream or video, or if you want it listed in that list that was playing just before, just now, check out the top link in the video description below. You'll find out how to get those types of shout outs at the end of every live stream and video. Not to mention, you get access to bonus video content and also access to a Discord server where there are a couple of channels on there where I do giveaways every single month. In fact, I do multiple giveaways every single month. I try to make it so that I'm giving away Blu-rays and 4Ks that make up at least 4 or 5 different giveaways. Sometimes I have to put them in all towards the very end because back in the school session, of course, now means that I'm going to be a little bit more delayed there. So if you want access to things like that, if you want access to a great community, you guys seriously are all amazing and beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.